handwritten notes that Justice Department official Dana Bente took on March 30th, 2017, when he got a phone call that day from FBI Director James Comey. On that date, Dana Bente was the acting Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Attorney General Jeff Sessions was recused from overseeing the Russia investigation, and so Dana Bente on that date was in charge of overseeing all strands of the FBI investigation into the Russia matter. Now, Special Counsel Robert Mueller had not yet been appointed. That wouldn't happen until several weeks later, after FBI Director James Comey was fired. So on the occasion of this call, from which we have photocopies of the handwritten notes, you should know that Comey was still FBI director, and he was phoning Bente to report what had just happened between him and the president. Comey would later explain to Congress that he took notes himself on this interaction with the president and others, and he briefed other senior officials, senior law enforcement officials, about this interaction with the president and others, because he believed those interactions were, for lack of a better turn of phrase, sort of important and unusual. He wanted to make sure there was a record of those interactions. Now, the president would later denounce James Comey as a liar, saying that his accounts of his interactions with the president were not true. But now, for the first time, we can compare Comey's public statements about what he says the president did. We can compare those public statements with the notes taken by someone who Comey briefed about it that same day. All right, you can see the heading here. First, it's marked top secret, and then that is crossed out, and the cross out is initialed by the head of the counterintelligence division at the FBI, who also provided what amounts to a cover letter to these notes, explaining that this top secret stamp was basically affixed in error and that these notes are not, in fact, classified. And then here's the top line of the notes. Comey, March 30th, 2017, 8:13 a.m. The handwriting here is a little sketchy. We believe this to be Dana Bente's handwriting. And then it says here in the notes, cloud as a result of Russia business. This makes running the country difficult. That's in Bente's handwritten notes, as what Comey described the president as saying to him, to James Comey. Compare that with what James Comey himself described publicly about that interaction with the president.
You described two phone calls that you received from President Trump, one on March 30 and one on April 11, where he, quote, described the Russia investigation as a cloud that was impairing his ability, end quote, as president, and asked you, quote, to lift the cloud, end quote. How did you interpret that? And what did you believe he wanted you to do?
I interpreted that as he was frustrated that the Russia investigation was taking up so much time and energy. I think he meant of the executive branch, but in the public square in general, and it was making it difficult for him to focus on other priorities of his.
So Comey tells Congress that the Russia business was a cloud that the president believed was impairing his ability as president. That's what he said to Congress out loud. Comey explains that the same way to Dana Bente, according to these notes. Quote, cloud as a result of Russia business. This makes running the country difficult. So that very closely tracks his public testimony with what he apparently told Dana Bente that day. Here's more from Comey's written testimony to Congress that day. On the morning of March 30th, the president called me at the FBI. He described the Russia investigation as a cloud that was impairing his ability to act on behalf of the country. He said he had nothing to do with Russia. He had not been involved with hookers in Russia. He had always assumed he was being recorded when in Russia. He asked what he could do to lift the cloud. I responded that we were investigating the matter as quickly as we could, and that there would be great benefit if we didn't find anything to our having done the work well. The president agreed, but then re-emphasized the problems this was causing him. That is what James Comey testified in his written testimony to Congress. From these notes we have just obtained, it appears that is exactly what he told Dana Bente, the president said too. From Bente's notes, quote, what can I do to relieve the cloud? Kept coming back to it, making it hard to do business for the country. We will do the work well. Again, Comey's testimony to Congress about the president's call to him on March 30th about the Russia investigation, closely tracking, including exact phrases, closely tracking what these notes say he told Dana Bente about the president's call. I've got two more. Actually, and for this second to last one, let's go back to that Comey exchange with Feinstein. So there'll be a little overlap here in the tape you just saw, but watch this to the end.
You described two phone calls that you received from President Trump, one on March 30 and one on April 11, where he, quote, described the Russia investigation as a cloud that was impairing his ability, end quote, as president, and asked you, quote, to lift the cloud, end quote. How did you interpret that? And what did you believe he wanted you to do?
I interpret that as he was frustrated that the Russia investigation was taking up so much time and energy. I think he meant of the executive branch, but in the public square in general, and it was making it difficult for him to focus on other priorities of his. But what he asked me was actually narrower than that. So I think what he meant by the cloud, and again, I could be wrong, but what I think he meant by the cloud was the entire investigation is taking up oxygen and making it hard for me to focus on the things I want to focus on. The ask was to get it out that I, the president, am not personally under investigation.
The ask was to get it out that I, the president, am not personally under investigation. That's what Comey told Congress about the president's specific request to him and that call on March 30th, 2017. Here's what Comey apparently told Bente that same day, so there would be a corroborating witness to this ask from the president. From Bente's notes, quote, reminded him, we are not investigating you. That would be great to get out. So Comey tells Congress what the president asked him to do was make a public statement announcing the president wasn't under investigation. Comey apparently used that same description when he called Dana Bente that day to brief him on the president's behavior. All right, last one. Part of the obstruction of justice concern here is that the president shouldn't have been calling James Comey anyway. Shouldn't have been making this direct call to the FBI director about an ongoing investigation. The president shouldn't be having one-on-one solo communication with the FBI director about matters actively under investigation. Now, Comey explained to Congress that according to the rules, he shouldn't be talking to the president about this stuff alone at all.
Did you go to anyone at the Department of Justice and ask them to call the White House counsel's office and explain that the president had to have a far better understanding and appreciation of his role vis-a-vis the FBI?
In general, I did. I spoke to the Attorney General and I spoke to the new Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Rosenstein, when he took office and explained my serious concern about the way in which the president is interacting, especially with the FBI. And I specifically, as I said in my testimony, told the Attorney General, it can't happen that you get kicked out of the room and the president talks to me.
Told the Attorney General, it can't happen that you get kicked out of the room and the president talks to me, meaning I can't be having these conversations with the president alone. So that's what Comey told Congress. He says he let the Justice Department know, he let the Attorney General know. It can't be that the Attorney General gets kicked out of the room and the president talks to the FBI director alone. Can't happen. That's what Comey says to Congress about what his conversations were like on this subject, right? Well, it turns out the notes we have obtained indicate that he told Dana Bente that same thing. Quote, told AG before his recusal, I cannot be speaking with the president alone. So the FBI director, James Comey, told Congress about his basically strange interactions with the president on the Russia investigation. He says he had these interactions with the president that were about the Russia investigation that were strange, and then the president fired him. The president later told visiting Russian officials in the Oval Office, and he told Lester Holt on NBC News, that the firing of James Comey did have to do with the Russia investigation. The president just yesterday made public claims that firing James Comey was the right thing to do. The president has spent the last year denouncing James Comey as a liar, saying he's somebody who lied publicly about his interactions with the president before he was fired by the president. Well, these notes, which we believe are Dana Bente's first-hand handwritten notes from his conversation with Comey after that March 30th call, This is the first contemporaneous evidence that we, the public, have seen of what James Comey told other public officials at the time about the president's behavior. And as best as we can tell, it absolutely matches his public statements about the president's behavior. Now, we have a few other documents that we have obtained that we are still reporting out. This is what we've got so far. I should tell you, we have reached out to the Justice Department, no comment. We've reached out to the FBI, no comment. We've reached out to James Comey, no comment. Dana Bente, no comment. But we're working on changing as much of those as we can. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.